Let's take a look down under with this week's Fish Eye View, sponsored by Toro. Count on it. Places where sun and shade intersect are one of the best setups to find active fish, not simply the fear of sunburn or a matter of protection. Dark zones are ideal feeding locations. As you can see, predators are nearly invisible to anything passing by in the light. For anglers, it's important to work as close as possible to these edges. Many fish are unwilling to travel too far out into the light and will position themselves in the darkest corner. If all else fails, try swimming bait from sunlight directly into this danger zone. As with all structure and cover, look for a spot within a spot. Check out those mats of floating weeds, lily pads, and so on. Though dark zones are where you find them, the most important feature to look for is stability. That shade must be an all-day thing to attract and hold fish. Even if that darkness moves about during the day with the angle of the sun, it must remain constant. Overhanging trees like this factor in, while docks and boathouses do it up one better. Anchored boats that seldom leave port are an even bigger draw. Check out the moss on this outboard and prop. Then witness the senior bucketmouth that calls this place home. And speaking of old mossbacks, game fish aren't the only predators that head for dark zones when it's dinner time. The activities of man have always had a negative impact on fish populations. Thankfully, some of our structures show a positive effect. The very best things mankind has created are bridges and culverts. Indeed, some of the most incredible fish we've ever recorded call these places home. On larger crossings, bridge abutments have a special appeal. And it's easy, nearly vertical fishing right below your feet. Well known and therefore heavily fished, docks are classic man-made cover that draw many different species. Frequently overlooked, wooden pilings that anchor boathouses and other structures are particularly attractive to fish. Breakwalls are another matter. Usually bypassed, they appear static and boring. Even so, we've seen evidence to suggest they hold plenty of heavy specimens. Actually, man-made features don't need to be that extensive to draw fish. Anchor blocks that hold channel markers and buoys in place, for instance. Even chains and ropes add to the equation. Or it can be something as simple as an underwater cable. On the smaller end of the scale, carelessly discarded or lost items are eventually claimed by fish. It's all about something different on the bottom. In effect, man's garbage recycled into someone's home. Long before anyone ever began to consider structure fishing in lakes, river fishermen were using this knowledge to their full advantage. While trout and salmon are the mainstay of this approach, warm water species also factor in. On smaller rivers, undercut banks and log jams are classic and obvious spots. When dealing with resident and migratory species, these locations consistently hold the most fish. It's all a matter of overhead cover. To that end, bridges and culvert pipes form some of the very best man-made cover. On rivers of all sizes, deep pools also hold fish, but are only of value when other forms of cover are scarce. Throw a few rocks or a piece of wood into the equation, and you'll draw nearly all the fish in that deep hole. As in lakes, fish relate to changes in their environment. Because they occur in shallower water, some of the most overlooked structural features in rivers are weed beds. No matter how sparse, fish use these locations when actively feeding. Weeds are insect and minnow factories. It should be noted that holding and feeding locations are quite often two separate things. When looking for a meal, fish will move to the head of pools to sit in surprisingly shallow water.